Well, thank you, Daniela. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Julianus, and I'm a wildlife biologist with the Bureau of Land Management Central Yukon Field Office in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I'm really excited to share with you today some information about the squirrels of Alaska. So I really enjoyed working on this presentation. I learned a lot about squirrels, a lot of stuff that I didn't know. But probably my favorite part of working on this presentation was coming up with the title, which is probably no surprise. But the title of the talk today is Shadowtails, Siksiks, and Whistlepigs, the Squirrels of Alaska. And as we go through the presentation, I'll explain what each one of those titles means as we go through. So before we get into the individual species, I did want to take you back to Biology 101 and taxonomic classification of the tree of life. So we're today going to be talking about squirrels, which are in the Squirridae family. And squirrels are rodents, so they're members of the order Rodenta, and they're mammals, so they're in the class Mammalia. They're chordates, like we are as humans, meaning that they have backbones, and they are, of course, in the animal kingdom. So the Latin translation of scurrid or scurridae loosely translates to shadow tail, and it refers to many of the members of this family that have large bushy tails. Not all of them have large bushy tails, but a lot of them do. There are 50, it's a pretty diverse group. So there are 273 species worldwide in 50 genera, in 60 and 66 species in North America. And this, of course, includes chipmunks, marmots, flying squirrels, tree squirrels, and ground squirrels, a lot of which we're going to talk about today. Members of the squirrel family are found from the Arctic to the tropics in many, many different habitats. They are usually herbivorous, meaning they eat plants and plant material, but many species are omnivorous, meaning that they eat both plants and animals. Many members of the squirrel family are highly social, while others are antisocial to the point where they will injure or kill one another. And I think we have a nice range of that diversity in that regard here in Alaska. So for Alaska, we have 6 species in 4 different genera. And this is the only interactive thing I'll make you do during the presentation, but on the screen are the 6 different species of squirrels we will be talking about today. And yeah, just think of whether you recognize the shapes and if you can name all 6 of the species. And while you're thinking about that, consider these questions as well. So which species are you most likely to see where you live? Which species are you least likely to see? Which species have you seen, and which species do you have yet to see in the state? Which 3 species are found only in Alaska and Canada? Which 4 species of squirrels hibernate? Which ones are solitary? One species is nocturnal. Can you guess which one? You might be able to guess from the shape on the screen. One has the longest hibernation of any animal. Do you know which one? And the last question, one is found only in Alaska. Can you name that species? So the first one, which is actually the first one we're going to talk about today, is the North American red squirrel, which is probably the one that maybe some of you saw this morning. And then we have the Arctic ground squirrel, the northern flying squirrel, our nocturnal species with the great big eye there. And then we have 3 species of marmots. We have the hoary marmot, the woodchuck, and the Alaska marmot. So first, as I said, we're going to start off with probably the most common one, or the one you're most likely to see. And yeah, I bet most of you have either heard or seen this squirrel at least once in the past week. And this, of course, is Tamioscurus hudsonicus, the North American red squirrel, or it's also called the pine squirrel. Or I had a friend who would always call them the red scourge, which I thought was a really good name for these guys. So the red squirrel is the smallest tree squirrel in its range, but it has a really big personality. So they're loud. They have a lot of alarm calls and they're chattering constantly. And often they're messy. So they leave pieces of spruce cones under branches and in big piles. And yeah, they're just busy, outgoing animals that they're easy to see, they're easy to hear in the woods, and they're easy to track. They're about a foot long, including their tail. And their coloration is beautiful. They're these beautiful rusty reds and browns. They have kind of a whitish pale underside and a white eye ring, and males and females look very similar. So the scientific name for the red squirrel is Tamiascurus hudsonicus, and the naming of the meaning of this name is kind of interesting. So scurus, as I said, that scuridae name translates to shadow tail, and tamia, the prefix of the genus name, means storer or housekeeper, or I've also seen it translated as steward. So very loosely, this name means the steward who sits in the shadow of its tail, which is I think really beautiful and also really appropriate for these guys, as we'll see. So, red squirrels are found throughout most of Alaska and Canada, and they range across much of the forested contiguous United States as well. They are arboreal, meaning that they live mostly in trees, and they're usually associated with coniferous forests, which provide one of their favorite foods, which is spruce cones. And white spruce is such an important food source that it influences the distribution and den sites of red squirrels. So if you have a great stand of white spruce, like I used to in my old backyard, you're likely to have great red squirrel habitat, and you'll know it because you will hear them and you'll see them. Their diet, like other tree and ground squirrels, is supplemented by many other foods, including mushrooms, bones, eggs, young birds, and insects, depending on the time of year. They don't hibernate, but they will reduce their activity sometimes when it's cold. Although here in Fairbanks, I've still heard them chattering at 30 below. Both males and females will defend territories anywhere from half an acre to 3 acres. And yeah, within their home ranges they always have good food resource or sources, hopefully. They have nest and resting sites and food caches that are called middens. So this is a picture of a sizable midden. Many of you have probably seen this in the woods before. And this is a food cache. So these caches often accumulate over several years, often by successive occupants of a territory. So when one animal dies or moves out, another will move in and gain access to these food resources. They locate large caches of cones, these middens, in usually in wet areas where the moisture keeps the cones from opening. Such caches are not covered, just as you see in the photo, and seeds may remain viable for years. This is probably a familiar photo for many of you. Red squirrel just after running up a nearby tree that's chattering at you while flicking its tail angrily. Um, Yeah, this aggressive behavior is characterized by scolding chatter, threatening posture, kind of a rapid jerking of the tail, or for animals, they'll actually attack and make contact with their forepaws and teeth. They are highly territorial and are solitary except for mating season and females with young. And if you pay attention, you can hear when two squirrels are vying for territory in the woods. We're kind of at the tail end of their breeding season. They breed in February and March, in the interior at least. And yeah, it's fun to watch their interactions in the spring. Yeah, a couple times over the last month, coming into work in the morning, I'd see squirrels chasing each other across the parking lot and their tracks all over. And yeah, it was definitely spring. So when I was doing my homework for this presentation, I found this really great website from the Kluane Lake Research Station in Yukon, Canada. And this group has been studying red squirrels in a small area for multiple decades, and they've learned an enormous amount about them, which is really, really cool. I think one of the coolest things, I'm not going to read through all of this, but one of the coolest things they've learned is that female squirrels, listening to the territorial calls of other individuals, actually, while they're in the nest with the young, um, listening to those calls elicits a hormone response that actually primes the young to deal with a specific level of competition, whether it's high competition or low competition, once they leave the nest. So they're ready to deal with what's out in their environment before they're even full grown. So how to see them? I'll do this for each one of the species we talk about today. For red squirrels, yeah, I think just getting out. Getting out on ski trails or hiking trails, walking through the woods, going hunting with a 22 and a friend if you're into that. And yeah, just look for signs. Look for those middens. Look for tracks and runs, and then listen for alarm calls. They might also show up at your bird feeder. You could probably see them there. And yeah, I think red squirrels are really great for those learning how to read animal tracks and sign because they're easy to find. They leave a lot of trails and sign, and you can often see and hear them as well when you're out. So they're really interactive, and you know when they're there. Okay, the next squirrel we're going to talk about is uh, a species that you are almost least likely to see, even though it might be living in your backyard. And it's the only squirrel in the state I have yet to see. Hopefully someday I'll see it, but I haven't seen it to this point yet. And this, of course, is the northern flying squirrel. It's one of two species of flying squirrel in North America. We have the northern flying squirrel and the southern flying squirrel. It's a small squirrel. It's about 10 inches long with very soft fur. It's a rich brown color above and white and kind of grayish below. And it has distinctly large, round eyes. The northern flying squirrel is nocturnal, so they have excellent night vision. And they have a loose fold of skin between their forelegs and hind legs, which is called the furred patagium. And this enables the squirrel to glide. They don't fly, they glide, but they can glide up to 300 feet through the woods. Typically, their glides are a lot shorter than that, between 30 and 50 feet between the trees. They're able to steer with their tails, and they have these special tendons in their legs that they can use to maneuver. And the squirrel suit is that design is actually that base jumpers use is actually based on the flying squirrel, which is kind of cool. So the flying squirrel has a wide range across the northern forests. They're most often associated with fairly dense conifer forests, but they can also live in mixed conifer deciduous forests as well. They're often more abundant near surface water because the mushrooms and other fungi that are a big part of their diet are often more abundant there. The flying squirrel is quite common in its range, but because it is nocturnal, it's seldom seen. And they do have a diverse diet, but fungi and lichens do make up a large part of it. The northern flying squirrel is almost exclusively arboreal, meaning that they live in trees. They need somewhat dense forests because they must be able to glide from tree to tree. And their nocturnal activity peaks. They'll be active for several hours shortly after sunset, and then again just before dawn. They have excellent senses in addition to their vision. They, like many species of squirrels, are very, very tactile. So they'll pick up things and bite and manipulate many things with their paws to figure out what it is and whether they can eat it. Flying squirrels, this is pretty interesting. I don't think I realized this before working on this presentation. They are the chief prey of the northern spotted owl, which is an endangered species in the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of research has been done on flying squirrel ecology for this reason, because of the northern spotted owl. They're an important prey species for other species of owls, including the great horned owls that we have here in Alaska. And they play an important part in forest ecosystems as a whole because they disperse fungi that are important for forest health. So how to see the northern flying squirrel? I would say first, good luck. And I'm jealous if you have seen one. A lot of people you do have to get out at night if you're going to see them actively feeding. Some people will put out platform feeders and actually target northern flying squirrels, but often they'll come into your bird feeder if you're putting out a certain type of feed. And a lot of people will put game cameras out on their feeders to see if they do have northern flying squirrels in the neighborhood. Okay, so our third species is the Arctic ground squirrel, Urtocitellus perryi, which is one of the largest ground squirrel species in North America. They're reddish to grayish brown, and they're a little over a foot long, and they're built for digging and burrowing. Their weight fluctuates dramatically, so they enter hibernation in the fall in really good body condition. They're kind of fat and happy going into hibernation, and shortly after emergence in the spring, they're very, very thin until they can put on enough, or they can put on weight with their summer diet. And these guys are our Siksiks. So the Inupiaq name for the Arctic ground squirrel is Siksik, or they're also called parka squirrels because their furs were used to line parkas. But Siksik is actually an alarm call that these squirrels use to warn other squirrels of danger. So yeah, I think once at first when you hear that call, you think, what is that? It doesn't sound quite like a bird, but once you kind of realize what it is, yeah, it's hard to mistake it for anything else. The Arctic ground squirrel is found throughout most of Alaska and northern Canada. And it is the only ground squirrel within its range. All the other ground squirrels range quite a ways north of this range. They live in subalpine brushy meadows, riverbanks, lake shores, and sandbanks in Arctic and alpine tundra with loose soils, which is kind of the key. So Arctic ground squirrel colonies create elaborate burrow systems through digging, and they must live in areas where they can excavate these burrows. So prime habitat within their range is largely dictated by access to good soil for excavation. They are omnivores that take advantage of opportunistic food resources, such as mushrooms, bird eggs, and young birds, in addition to a diet of stems, leaves, seeds, and roots. So females, we'll talk about hibernation a little bit. Females enter hibernation earlier than males, and males can be out as late as the first week of October. So I was up in the Brooks Range last fall on the north side of the Brooks Range, and I think I saw a ground squirrel out the last week of September, which was the latest I've ever seen them out. So ground squirrels on the North Slope emerge in early April. And at that time, as you can see in the photo, the ground is still completely snow covered and it's still very much winter. This photo was from May 7th. Males will actually eat cached food inside of their burrow after they wake up in order to regrow their testes and improve their body condition prior to the mating season. So in this condition, they're ready to establish and defend territories, fight with other males, and mate with females. Females will emerge later than males and mate as soon as they leave the burrow in the spring. And all of this really maximizes the young's opportunity to grow and prepare for winter during the short summer season. Multiple females have territories inside of a male's territory. And when they have their young, they communally raise them. Males aren't involved in raising the young, but they do defend their territory with females inside of it. Male mortality is much higher due to exposure to predation, fighting, and decreased body condition going into hibernation. They're territorial to the point where they will kill each other. And so elevated stress levels in response to competition can result in things like, I think, like 20% lower body mass and other fitness issues, which really impact their survival. They're an important prey species for many different animals and often influence changes in predator species abundance and whether those predators will nest or have young the following year. They're preyed on by golden eagles, deer falcons, rough-legged hawks. Ermine will prey on the young, wolves, and grizzly bears. And bears that are fortunate enough to live in areas inhabited by ground squirrels spend a lot of time digging up squirrels and burrows. So a little bit more about hibernation. Uh, The Arctic ground squirrel, has the longest period of hibernation on Earth, and so a lot of research about their hibernation, has been done at our Alaska universities and other universities across North America. Two Lake Research Station, which is located 350 miles north of Fairbanks on the Dalton Highway, has done extensive research on Arctic ground squirrels, and have learned a lot of amazing things about their physiology, their social structure, and their role in Arctic food webs. So when they're in torpor, or this deep sleep hibernation, their bodies are their body temperature is around freezing. I think their heart beats like once per minute, and they breathe less than once a minute. And so they'll be in torpor for weeks at a time in the winter, but they will wake up briefly multiple times over the course of a 6 month period. And they'll kind of shiver themselves awake, and their metabolism will back up, and they'll do things like make glucose and proteins and immune cells to get them through the remainder of the winter. So they suffer no bone loss when they are in hibernation. They're obese when they go into hibernation, but there are no ill effects on their health. And this is pretty fascinating. They're able to maintain their circadian rhythms in spite of not being exposed to any environmental cues available to them in their burrow, like sunlight. So all of this is being studied for its potential application to human health and treatment of diseases or traumatic injuries. Yeah, it's almost impossible to summarize all the cool aspects of their physiology and behavioral adaptations to prolonged hibernation. And yeah, they're such neat animals, and so important to Arctic ecosystems. So how to see Arctic ground squirrels? I would say don't bother to look for them between October and May. Take a trip to the tundra. Come to the Central Yukon field office. Yeah, I'd encourage you to go camping and hiking at Galbraith Lake. There's plenty of ground squirrels there. Look for sign for Arctic ground squirrels in sandy, loose soils, often along river bluffs. And where there's sign, you'll likely see squirrels. And listen for that Siksik alarm call. And yeah, if you do hear it, think to yourself, if are they sounding the alarm because of me, or because of something else? And often, it might be a golden eagle flying overhead or something cool like that. I encourage you with all of these squirrels, but with the Arctic ground squirrel in particular, to stay a while and appreciate their busy antics. This picture here was my friend Kelly and I were taking a lunch break on Chandelar Shelf, and yeah, we were watching a group of Arctic ground squirrels. Yeah, in the afternoon sun. It was fun. And there are many great documentaries about ground squirrel research online, which I encourage you to check out. Okay, and we're on to the marmots. So the first marmot we're going to talk about, marmot species, is the woodchuck, Marmota monax. The woodchuck is a little bit smaller than the other species of marmots we have here in the state, and it's the only solitary marmot in the world. So woodchucks don't form stable mated pair bonds like other marmots do. Most marmot species are really social, um, and the young leave after just one summer. So the young will often excavate burrows next to their mother for the first year, so that sometimes gives the appearance they're living in colonies, but they are solitary. They're moderately territorial, and they don't really tolerate others in their home range outside of breeding season. This species, of course, is the same species as Punxsutawney Phil. I would be remiss if I didn't mention him in this presentation. I think Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow this year. I don't know that for sure, and often it seems like it doesn't matter too much in Alaska. But the woodchuck is the widest ranging marmot in North America. So Punxsutawney Phil lives in Pennsylvania, and we have them up here all the way in Alaska. Their range distribution in Alaska is restricted to kind of the eastern interior, so they're not in Anchorage, but from the Canadian border west to Fairbanks and a little ways west and southwest along the Parks Highway. They live in areas with dry soils, in open woodlands, thickets, rock slopes, fields, and clearings. And the woodchuck you'll often see them along roads and utility rights of ways and on levees and dams where the natural terrain doesn't provide adequate open habitat. They live in burrows they've excavated out of loose soil, and usually these burrows are around 15 feet long. Burrows have various chambers. These chambers have different uses. So some are used for kind of escape and safety. Others are used for hibernating. Others are used for sleeping and resting. And then others are used for rearing young. And a lot of the abandoned burrows that you'll see, yeah, they benefit other species by providing shelter. They are a generalist herbivore that eats forbs, grasses, mosses, berries, leaves, and roots. And historically, especially in other parts of their range, they've been considered a pest because they feed on agricultural crops and will damage farm fields. So just a little bit more about the woodchuck's range because I think it's kind of interesting. This is a screenshot from the iNaturalist website, and it shows records of woodchuck observations in Alaska. And so, as you can see, they kind of follow the Richardson Highway up into the Fairbanks area, and yeah, they just haven't been observed very many other places. So it's interesting to see. This is maybe for the Fairbanks folks, but interesting to see where they've been seen in Fairbanks, and interesting to think about how this would potentially change over time. Woodchucks do hibernate. They'll hibernate alone in their den, and they are true excavators like the ground squirrel, so they create their entire burrow system by digging. And they are a long-lived species like other marmots. They can live over 10 years in the wild. They have strictly diurnal habits where they will be active during the morning and evening, but they rest for a lot of the day. How to see them. You might actually have a better chance seeing them elsewhere in the country, depending on where you live in Alaska. So watch for them in your travels. And ask around for known residents. Often they will have names, and folks will know exactly where to look for them and what their habits are. We have a woodchuck that lives under the barn at Kramer's Field here in Fairbanks, and yeah, word usually gets around once it emerges in springtime. I haven't heard if it's been out yet this year. Um, so yeah, open. I'd encourage you to look for disturbed ground. Often open areas and developed areas along the road system are good. So keep an eye out along roadsides. Okay, the hoary marmot, Marmota caligata. This great picture was taken by my good friend Crystal Glassburn along the Pinnell Mountain Trail in the Steese National Conservation Area. The hoary marmot has many different names, including rock chuck and whistler, which is incidentally how Whistler, British Columbia, got its name. And I don't hear this too much in Alaska, but these guys, along with another species of marmot, the yellow-bellied marmot, are called whistle pigs elsewhere in the country. So that rounds out our three-part title to our talk. They are a large squirrel with an overall kind of grizzled appearance, which you can see in this photo here. And their species name, caligata, means booted in Latin and refers to their dark lower legs. These guys are full of personality. They're so much fun to watch. And they're probably one of the easiest animals, at least for me, probably, to anthropomorphize, so to give human characteristics to. And yeah, if I was going to spend an afternoon watching a critter, I'd probably choose a group of marmots. They're often found in beautiful alpine and subalpine areas such as this, but they're only found south of the Yukon River in Alaska. They live in amongst boulder fields and rock outcroppings near access to good forage. And they aren't like ground squirrels or woodchucks where they excavate their entire burrow, but rather they use the natural protection of rocks as a starting place, and then they excavate networks of burrows between and under the rocks. They are herbivorous and they need access to good grasses and sedges near their burrow system. So the juxtaposition of food and shelter is really important for good marmot habitat, having both in a relatively small area. They offer a sizable meal for many medium-sized and large predators, such as wolves, bears, and raptors. And they're almost completely defenseless against these critters when they're away from the den. So they're quick to retreat and quick to sound the alarm. They're another one of our hibernating squirrels. So they head into their burrows in the fall and emerge in the spring, depending on when things start to melt. So across their range, hibernation can be as short as October to February, and in more southern parts of their range, in the more southern parts of the range, but it's obviously longer in Alaska. They are very social creatures with complex greeting rituals and prolonged periods of play and wrestling, which makes them really fun to watch. And they are also a long-lived species, so pairs often form multi-year bonds, and relationships between species or individuals are well developed. A lot of the hoary marmot habitats throughout the country is sensitive to environmental change. As many of the alpine regions they inhabit do often experience changes in snowfall and vegetation. So a lot of research has been done on changes in their distribution. How to see the hoary marmot. I'd encourage you to spend some time in a beautiful country and know what to look for in terms of habitat. That is the boulder fields with good grassy meadows next to them. And you will likely hear them before you see them. So here, my good friend Ann and I were out watching a group of marmots that were out and about, enjoying the afternoon sunshine. And yeah, it's so much fun to watch them. As with all these critters, I encourage you to get out and see them to the extent that you can, but I recognize that it's not possible for many folks. A lot of these animals live in really remote places. So the internet is a wealth of information, and I really encourage you to get online and search for documentaries and videos and websites where you can learn more about marmots and other species. So our final species that we're going to talk about is the Alaska marmot, also called the Brooks Range marmot. It is our only species that is endemic to or found only in Alaska. It's slightly smaller than the hoary marmot. It's much darker than the hoary marmot with a black face, which you can see really well in this photo, and a black back. And also, it doesn't have the grizzled tips on its guard hairs like the hoary marmot does. This species is very similar to the hoary marmot, and it was once thought to belong to the same species. And I think it was identified as its own species in the mid 1960s. So the ranges of the Alaska and hoary marmots do not overlap. The Alaska marmot has never been documented south of the Yukon River, but it has been found in discrete mountainous areas just north of the Yukon. So a group of NSF researchers documented Alaska marmots in the Ray Mountains north of Tanana in 1979. And Erin Gunderson, who works at the University of Alaska Museum, documented Alaska marmots in the Cochrane Hills and Ray Mountains as part of his thesis work in the mid 2000s, which I'd encourage you to check out. It's really, really interesting. So much of this area is BLM land. So I think that we really have a neat opportunity to contribute to the understanding of these species, the species geographic distribution in Alaska. And we've done some recent modeling work to figure out where promising marmot habitat is between the Brooks Range and these more isolated mountainous regions. And it'd be really cool to further document colonies throughout the region. So like the hoary marmot, they inhabit boulder fields and rocky outcrops near high quality forage vegetation. And more so probably than even the hoary marmot, they require den sites that have a sufficient accumulation of snow, but that are snow free as early as possible in the spring because the growing season is so short. They're not rare, but their habitat requirements are specific enough that they don't necessarily inhabit every boulder field you might come across within their range. So this picture shows their excellent camouflage amongst the dark lichen-covered rocks. I watched these two wrestle for like an hour last spring. It was great. It was really funny to watch. They are perhaps the most social squirrel species in Alaska. Hoary marmots, as we discussed, are highly colonial, but they do den individually. But a colony of Alaska marmots will actually all den together in a single hibernation chamber from September to May. They breed while they're still in the den, and the offspring stay with the colony for 2 years. They are also a long-lived species, and winter dens and colony locations are relatively permanent for each colony. And some have been documented to be, living in the same place for over 20 years. They are also prey for wolves, wolverines, foxes, bears, and raptors such as golden eagles, and they readily alarm call and retreat to their burrows when threatened. So how to see them? I think you have to plan a trip to the Brooks Range. If you do, be sure to do your research. I recommend looking online. You'll find some information about known colonies. Do be mindful of the fact that these colonies are relatively permanent. So take care not to disturb animals or to advertise colonies. Use your discretion when telling people. Practice responsible recreation and remember that if animals are reacting to your presence, you're probably too close to them. As you're walking, look for those large boulder fields and listen for alarm calls. And also appreciate the other animals you see, even if you don't end up seeing what you went looking for. And this picture kind of relates to that. So my favorite adventure buddy, Seth, and I were hiking up this valley looking for marmots last summer. We had heard that there were marmots at the head of the valley. So that's what we were on a mission to go find. And in this picture, we're looking at a young grizzly bear that was walking along the creek bed towards us. I don't think you can see it in the picture, but we ended up getting turned around by the bear, and we headed back to the truck. But we had a really great time nonetheless, and we saw a lot. We saw a lot of ground squirrels and other things, even though we didn't see any marmots. So I encourage you to not get frustrated if you don't see them, and to enjoy what you do see. And yeah, there's so much to see in the Brooks Range and throughout the state in the summer. So appreciate and enjoy it. But I do plan to go back this summer and see if I can find them. And with that, that is our final species that we were going to talk about today. Yeah, as I said, I really enjoyed putting together this presentation. I've been working for the BLM here in Alaska for 12 years, and when I first started my job, I found myself I had to focus a lot on things that people like to eat and things that people like to see. So I did a lot of work on, moose and caribou and bears and things like that. But the Bureau of Land Management mission is, of course, a multiple use mission. We do a ton of different work in a ton of different areas, and part of that is, providing wildlife habitat, not just for moose and caribou, but also all the other species that use BLM land as well. So I think we have in the field office, we have over 40 species. I think we have 43 species of mammals. So yeah, I think as I've kind of gone through my career, it's been fun to really focus on those other species and learn about them so that we can better manage their habitat. So that was part of my impetus of choosing squirrels for this talk today, because it's something a little bit different. So. Let's see. Yeah, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for listening here today. I'm so glad that you could join us. Thank you to Daniela for all your help, and for the Campbell Creek Science Center for putting on these great programs and inviting me to be a part of it. Yeah, I've attended other ones just as a guest, and I've always really gotten a lot out of them. So I encourage you to tune in next time and yeah, get out and see some squirrels.